Hello, everyone, and welcome to Meowmix, the Carolina Panthers podcast. My name is Steven. I'm here solo today, mainly because there's some breaking news. Jerry is working in the office. I am working at home. I'm taking a little bit of break. My bosses are watching, just to talk to you guys a little bit about the news today. So Brian Burns, as we talked about a couple of days ago, I guess, in our latest podcast, is expected to be franchised, right? They, I guess, had broken off negotiations was the news yesterday, or maybe it was the day before. I don't remember. But either way, they had broken off negotiations according to a tweet put out by various media personalities, and today they franchised him. Now, they franchised him with the non-exclusive tag. So what does that mean? Non-exclusive tag versus exclusive tag. For those of you that don't know, most of you probably do know. Some of you may not. Exclusive tag means that he's yours, right? They franchise him. He's yours. It cannot be negotiated with any other teams or anything like that. And you know, he's yours for the year, essentially. You can still extend him, things like that, but the exclusive tag means he's yours. Now, the non-exclusive tag, which is what the Panthers used on Brian Burns, means that other teams can negotiate with Brian Burns. They can offer him a contract, and if he accepts the contract and the Panthers don't match the contract, Brian Burns would go to that team, and the Panthers would receive 2 first-round picks as compensation. What is the likelihood that that is going to happen? Probably fairly low, right? I can't imagine a world in which that takes place, but given Brian's production last year and, the fact that you're going to have to pay him, it seems like $30 million a year, maybe that seems like what he wants. It probably will end up being a little less, but the 2 first-round picks, plus you're going to have to pay the guy, that kind of money, seems unlikely that someone else is going to make an offer. But if they do, I would imagine the Panthers would let him walk. Right? I mean, unless the deal is just really good, if it's a $25 million a year deal for 5 years or something, then I could see the Panthers maybe taking that and just saying, hey, this has been negotiated. We're going to match it. And Brian, you get to stay with us. But if it's 30 or 28, probably anything above the 27 and maybe even the 27 at this point, because 2 first-round picks for a team that's rebuilding. As much as some of you don't like that word, that is what is happening. And we'll talk a little bit in a few minutes about some other signs that is happening. For a team that's rebuilding, getting 2 first-round picks, especially when you don't have one this year, it's a pretty big deal. So I would imagine if that offer is on the table, they're going to take it. Now, again, the Panthers can still negotiate with Brian Burns. That seems to be what they intend to do at this point, try to get him locked up long term. This franchise tag does hurt the cap a lot more than an extension would. So I think at this point the Panthers have like around, I think I saw $12 million free after the franchise tag. Don't quote me on that. I saw that as I was flitting through the news, so that may not be the case. But, basically the full amount of the franchise tag, which is $24 million this year, will hit the cap, right? So Cap Wizard Brandt will have to hopefully make this thing work. If we're going into free agency with $12 million available, and it's not going to be $12 million available because, again, there's some other news to talk about, but it's not going to be a ton more than that, and that's not the best news. So we'll have to see. Again, this is the first step. It seemed very likely this was going to happen, given that the two sides are so far off, apparently, reportedly, from a deal. It seemed like this was the way to go. So Burns tagged, not the end of the story by any stretch of the imagination. If I had to put, a percentage on, does Brian Burns play for the Panthers this year under the tag? I would say maybe like 30%, maybe 40%. I think it's fairly low. Not insignificant, of course. It certainly is possible. Um, but I think it's more likely that he is either traded or they work out an extension. I think those are the two most likely options here at this point. If I, again, if I had to put a percentage on it, I would say traded is 40%, plays under the tag 30%, and is extended 30%. Right? That I think that equals 100%. So that would be what I would say. He's most likely to get traded. I'm of two minds about it. Like, I love Brian Burns. I think he's a really good player. I don't think he's a $30 million player, as we've talked about on this podcast. Is he worth $30 million to the Panthers? If we were competing, I would say possibly. But again, this is a rebuild, guys. I think they're blowing this up. And I think they should. I think they should have blown it up a couple of years ago. Some of you, again, some of the comments that we've gotten, you guys don't like that. You don't like that idea. You think that this team has a lot of talent. It unfortunately doesn't. I don't know if the quarterback is the guy that's going to be here in 2 years. I don't know that. From what we saw last year, early returns weren't good. I know there's a ton of reasons why that is the case. But, his physical stature is what it is, and it's not going to get any better. You're going to have to build a team around him. We'll see if Canales can do that, but Canales is unproven as well. Dan Morgan is unproven as a GM. Smart money would probably be on this team not competing next year. Maybe not competing the year after in terms of playoffs, potential run into the playoffs, things like that. So, again, I think we're going to see a lot of veterans gone. I think we're going to see, let's just talk about it. I mean, the news came out yesterday that Dante Jackson likely to be released or traded. What can you get in a trade for a Dante Jackson? 5th, 6th round pick, maybe. I like Dante Jackson, and I will be sad to see Dante Jackson go. I think he is a good player. He's had injury concerns, obviously. Not the most durable player that we've ever had on the team, but when he's healthy, we've seen him produce at a high level. We've seen, him produce at lower levels before as well. But recently, and, at the end of last year, I think he was playing pretty good. And the secondary wasn't really a major issue last year. But, I talked about this on the last podcast, that I thought this could happen. And it seems like Dante Jackson is likely to be released or traded. So obviously, if we can trade him, that would be preferred, but released seems to be the way to go. I think it's going to free up $6 million in cap space, something like that, which, again, if you're franchising Brian Burns, that money has to come from somewhere. And it seems like this is one of those possibilities. We're going to talk about some guys in free agency here within a few days when we do our free agent primer podcast that could replace Dante Jackson. But as of now, it looks like Dante Jackson is probably on his way out. And, you can look back at, should they have re-signed Dante Jackson when they had Stephon Gilmore, who seemingly wanted to be here, who got, I think, less money when he signed after he left Carolina? Would you have rather kept Stephon Gilmore here on that same contract that Dante Jackson had? I think I would have. Stephon Gilmore has been a Pro Bowler since then. He's still very good, even at an older age, mid-30s now. So mistakes have been made by this front office. Now you've got Dan Morgan coming in and Brant Tillis coming in to try and clean up some of the mess. And another guy that this just came out that looks like he's probably out as well is going to be Hayden Hurst, who was brought in last year, and big things were expected from Hayden Hurst. Big things did not happen with Hayden Hurst. He was not productive at all. The tight ends overall were pretty poor last year. And again, we've seen this over and over and over again with these guys, unfortunately. And year after year after year, the Panthers just miss on tight ends over and over and over. And me, personally, I hate it. Because I like a good tight end. Pun not intended. But I like having that outlet, especially for a young quarterback. A big, strong guy that can catch the ball over the middle and has a little bit of speed. You know, that's important. A safety outlet, that's important. And all the best teams seem to have viable tight ends that are, I mean, look at the last few Super Bowl champions. They all had pretty good tight ends, or great tight ends, you know, in the case of the Chiefs. So I'm hoping that the Panthers address that somehow in free agency or the draft or trade. You know, I'm still in the Kyle Pitts bandwagon if they want to try and, you know, swipe him from the Falcons for 75 cents on the dollar or 50 cents on the dollar, whatever, you know, they can do. I doubt that'll happen, but that would be amazing because I think Kyle Pitts is 1,000-yard, you know, tight end with a good scheme and, you know, a good quarterback. So, again, do we have that here? Who knows? We have no idea what the scheme is going to be, what the quarterback is going to look like next year, what the offensive line is going to look like next year, who the starting running back is going to be next year. You know, as of right now, it's Chuba, but who knows what that's going to look like. Wide receivers, Thielen, I think, you know, we could easily see some news in the next couple of days that Thielen is available or, you know, to be traded. I don't think they'll cut him because I think it's financially prohibitive to cut him, but I think you could see him traded. And I don't know the cap implications of a trade versus a cut. I just, you know, I don't know all that. But I do think that he would prefer to be somewhere else based on some of his comments that he made at the end of the last season. And I don't blame him because his career's winding down and he wants to win. And he wants to be somewhere where he can get a ring. And that's not here right now. So we'll see. But that's the news. Burns tagged. Dante out. Hayden Hurst out. There will be more news coming up over the next couple of days. Maybe more news today. I have no idea. But this is not over. Free agency is right around the corner. And things are happening. For good or ill, right? Like, you know, history will be the judge as to these moves. Were they the right moves or the wrong moves? As of right now, I'm happy to see the team making moves and reshaping this roster because this is a 2-win team. And yes, the coaching was poor last year, but the talent was also poor. The talent is not what it needs to be. It's just not what it needs to be to compete, even in a weak NFC South. So we're going to see a lot of changes, and it's already begun. So until next time, which may not be too long from now, we'll talk to you guys soon. Keep pounding.